typically folks will look at an African as someone who is Black in complexion. There are those who will consider an African as someone who is from the continental Africa. But human genetic studies have shown us that essentially every human being is an African. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. It doesn't matter your complexion. It doesn't matter your creed or your belief. You are genetically derived from Africa. Your ancestors at some point lived on the plain of Africa. And that means talking about cancer genomics or genomic studies in Africans generally, it's not just about the people currently or presently residing on the continent, but actually for global health equity. It is for every human being generally. But if you take it beyond that, and we now look at those presently residing on the continent, the human evolutionary tree itself has about 5 branches, one of which is the East African genetic tree. That branch diverts into 2, and part of it, people from that branch moved out of Africa, and I will now call them out of African population. That's formed what we call the Asian, the European, the Caucasian population generally. However, we still have the other 4 or 5, if you may, still presently residing on the continent. You have the West African population, the East African population, the Central African, the Southern African, and then the group referred to as the Coercian. So these 5 groups are matched together and generally called Africans. And you have a part of one of the groups called out of Africa population. So think about it. All the genetic studies, about 97% of genetic studies have been on the out of African population. And so we're saying that as far as cancer is concerned, which is basically a disease of the genome, there is need to study Africa. So whether you look at it as African as everybody in the world, or Africans as those currently residing on the continent, Africans needs to be studied. So if you look at the whole continuum of cancer control, from diagnosis to screening, to treatment, to survival, end of life, there's significant role that genomics plays. And you talk about precision medicine, precision oncology. And this precision medicine and precision oncology has contributed to increase in the number of cancer survivors in North America, in Europe, right? And so, but unfortunately, you look at the prediction for Africa, is not looking too good. So what we're saying is that we need to bring the application of genomics to cancer control in Africa. So as clinician Jews, white population, white women, Caucasian, could take simple BRCA screening to know whether they're at risk of ovarian or breast cancer. When are we going to bring that to Africa? When are we going to know the kind of HPV genotype across Africa that we can use to do precision immunization for cervical cancer? These are things that benefits that genomics holds for Africa. So definitely it is time for us to bring cancer genomics to the continent and ensure that we integrate genomics to cancer control. We're going to take at least two-pronged approach. One is the role of the cancer investigators. There's need for capacity building. Okay, there's need for capacity building. Genomics is high technology, science, and so there's need for African scientists, investigators to develop interest in genomics and not just do cancer research traditionally the way we do it. And so we need to develop capacity. Concerted efforts need to be in place to develop critical mass of African indigenous investigators who are skilled in different aspects of genomics, data acquisition, genomic data, wet lab processes, dry lab applications, bioinformatics. All of this needs to be developed. And then there's also the aspect for the government. There's need to invest in developing genomic infrastructure. COVID has taught us a lesson. Now we've seen the role that genomics is playing. Everybody knows PCR now. It wasn't like that 2 years ago. 2 years ago, you talk about PCR, somebody, an average folk on the street will ask you, what do you mean? Now, nobody needs to ask the question again. We need to begin to apply the gains of COVID, for example, to developing genomics infrastructure for cancer. And of course, we also need collaboration. This cannot be done in isolation. African investigators need collaboration, productive collaboration, not collaborators that are interested in just taking the resources of Africans and running away, doing what we call helicopter science or vampire science. We need those who are sincerely interested, genuinely interested in developing Africans and developing African resources. Those are at least those things that we need to put in place: collaboration, capacity building by the investigators, and investment in resources. These three things are the basic things that we need, that when they are in place, we can then begin to develop this area of science aggressively. I think what AORTIC set out to do is to ensure that we build bridges across Africa, enough for African scientists to work in isolation. Why don't we have inter-country collaboration in Africa? Why is it easier for an African investigator to collaborate with somebody from Europe or somebody from China or somebody from Australia? Why can't I collaborate with my colleagues in Benin Republic when I'm in Nigeria? Why am I not able to collaborate with my colleagues in Togo, for example, when I'm living in Benin Republic? So you realize that it's easier for a cancer investigator in South Africa to collaborate with another investigator in Australia rather than collaborate with investigators in Namibia. So AORTIC is set out through the SIG special interest group on cancer genomics to build these bridges and realize that see that we break down the silo, enough of silo research, we work together so that we can move cancer genomics research forward in Africa.